Hey everybody, this is Claire, and this is Small Joyful Things. As always, I go to thrift stores or I go to estate sales, or sometimes I buy things from Craigslist, and I look for things that I find interesting or that I think can tell me a story, and then I try to find out as much as I can about them and bring them home and tell you guys about them. And I got something kind of interesting for you today. Oop. Okay, so I've got a Beanie Baby. If I can get him to, if I can get this little guy to stand up. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, because obviously this was like the innovation of Beanie Babies, is that they actually had obviously the little beans in their base so they could stand up and pose and do kind of stuff that a regular plushie wasn't able to do because they were weighted. So this guy is a little duck, and we can see from his little swing tag, his name is Quackers. Date of birth, April 19th, 1994. There is a duck by the name of Quackers. Every night he eats animal crackers. He swims in a lake that's clear and blue, but he'll come to the shore to be with you. This was actually a thing. This was obviously a thing with the Beanie Babies, is that every Beanie Baby has its own name and its little poem, whatever, inside the swing tag. And this one is, you know, fairly old. You would think 1994? Not so much, but we'll get to that. Let's put him down, or at least try to get him to stay. About 6.5 inches long. Stay Quackers. About 4.5 inches wide. And maybe 5 inches high. He's a small little guy. Okay, so why did I get that? I bought this guy for $5 Canadian in a thrift store. He was actually part of a bag that's, you know, because frequently the thrift stores, they will take multiple Beanie Babies or multiple little plushies and they put them into plastic bags and sell them off as a lot. This guy had his bag torn open, and if there was another Beanie Baby, it was lost. And this is something, unfortunately, I see quite a bit. People will see kind of collectible or vintage toys, and they'll literally just rip open the bags and steal the one that they want and leave the other one on the, you know, hanging up. It happens quite a lot to essentially the more unusual Beanie Babies and to Hot Wheels and, you know, the collectible die-cast little toys. So what do we know about this guy? I kind of got him because I wanted to talk a little bit about the Beanie Baby craze of the 90s. And it's kind of a weird thing because I can remember Beanie Babies from back then. Like, I remember going into a couple of shops, like, and bearing in mind, again, I grew up in the middle of nowhere in Ireland. Beanie Babies were a thing, even, you know, in the middle of nowhere in Ireland. So I would go into Limerick, which is the, you know, the town that's closest to where I lived. But it's still about half an hour's drive away, you know, because Ireland isn't that big. And I can remember going into like one of the kind of smaller little gift shops, and they had an entire cabinet there of Beanie Babies of different kinds. And this would have been about like 1995, 1996. So about right about around, you know, the right time for Beanie Babies obviously to be around their release, I think in 93. And Beanie Babies, even then, like I can remember, you could have, if you wanted to, you could have bought them for I think £5 at the time. And they were incredibly popular, you know. There was a lot of there was kind of some of the rare ones even then that were starting to sell for a lot more money. I think I can remember one of the tie-dyed bears was there and selling for like 20 pounds. And Irish pounds, by the way, not quite the same. Not quite the same thing as UK pounds, you know, even at the time. And I can remember it thinking like, wow, that's outrageous for just a little toy, you know. But the craze of Beanie Babies was like a whole phenomenon. Like, and you can imagine like the most expensive one I think that ever went up was like the commemorative Princess Diana purple bear or something that sold for like $65,000 because it was so rare. And then the whole craze just kind of fell apart and vanished. And obviously Beanie Babies are collectible. And even now they're still, you know, for little plushy toys from that are 30 years, you know, almost 30 years old, you know, a lot of them are still kind of popular, still collectible, still, you know, being collected, but nowhere near that kind of money. I really just want to, like, I liked this guy, and especially because, like, I do see quite a number of Beanie Babies in thrift stores. I just kind of like the fact that this guy was obviously one of the originals. Bearing in mind, this is not from 1994, because although his swing tag says his date of birth is 1994, that was basically just when he was first released as a figure. The actual date, if we look at his tush tag, remember, this is the swing tag, and this is the tush tag, or the butt tag, whatever you want to call it. His butt tag says 1996. Thai ink, Oakbrook, Illinois, USA, surface washable, all material, blah, blah, blah. And there's a few, like, I mean, I'm not even sure who can even collect Beanie Babies now. I know there are still people that collect them. The interesting thing about him as well that I found out afterwards is that he is what's called an oddity. Because although it says here, his name, if I can open the tag, his name is Quackers, obviously, he's the duck. But on his tush tag it says Sly. And that's incorrect. That is in fact an oddity. That means that his tush tag does not match his swing tag. That is, Sly I think is the name of one of the Beanie Baby foxes as far as I remember. And that's kind of interesting. It's like, it used to be that oddities would actually sell for a little bit more because they were exactly that, because they were oddities. Not so much these days, I think, because there are so many of them. So anyway, if we go take a look, I'm going to be putting some links in the description to show you guys like stuff about, essentially just stuff about Beanie Babies that I've found out. So a few things, I'm gonna drop some information in here. One thing that I found is like condition is obviously a thing when it comes to Beanie Babies, because obviously they're soft toys and they can take quite a bit of a beating, especially if they were played with. Beanie Babies that have like an intact swing tag with not a lot of damage, and obviously they have their intact tush tag, they're obviously worth more than if both of those things are gone. They're worth more if they're in good condition and they aren't excessively worn. This guy, he's only a little bit kind of worn considering, you know, he's 25 years old. He's in fairly good condition. Mint is obviously his new, is matching intact tags and perfect. Not this guy. The Beanie Baby is perfect, but the tags show slight signs of wear. And then Plush Buddy is perfect, but the tags may be more increased. So this guy is going to be about near mint, okay? There's no dirt, there's no obvious wear. He's just kind of looks like he looks like what he is, which is quite an older plushy toy. Now, I have here toycollector.com, and it has a bunch of, basically an FAQ about all kinds of information about, you know, to do with Beanie Babies. A lot of people are definitely going to be asking, like, you know, was my collection worth and everything. To be honest, even right now, I don't really think they're worth a lot. They're definitely not worth what they were back in like the late 90s, early 2000s or whatever. There's a few different things I was reading as well about like the swing, like the actual generations of the tags. This guy has a 4th generation tag, which kind of lines up with the date. And funnily enough, you have to be if you actually do get into collecting, you have to be incredibly careful about what's on the swing tag and the tush tag. Like, because people faked Beanie Babies. That was a revelation, by the way. People faked Beanie Babies. The craze was so intense that there were people making knockoff Beanie Babies. It's something incredible for me to think about. I just love it. I can't imagine what the thought process of it going on there. If you can actually imagine that somebody meticulously trying to replicate like a little kid's toy because it's worth money, because people will assign value. Like the nice thing, or kind of the interesting story that I find anyway about Beanie Babies, it is the way that value was ascribed to them in such a short period of time. It's like they were made and people just went bonkers for them and started collecting them and spending outrageous sums of money on the rare ones. Like, it's amazing to think about that. And normally, if you have these kind of mundane objects like toys or whatever, it takes decades for them to acquire value in the eyes of the wider market. Like, if you consider, like, you know, Hot Wheels, for example, like the original 1960s, like the Red Line Hot Wheels, like the original Sweet 16 or whatever, they're like the first 16 Hot Wheels that were made. Like, they're worth thousands of dollars now. One of the very rare, it's a little red beach van. Can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. It's a very tiny little red beach van, and apparently it was like there was only a couple of them made, and because it was like, and it's, you know, it was very it was very unusual, and they ended up altering the design almost immediately. So some of the originals, like the original prototypes, are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that's astonishing when you think about it. Like, this is a toy that would have been sold for a couple of dollars at most. And the same was true of the Beanie Babies. It's just that it seemed to happen to them almost instantly, because they started acquiring value. They started essentially acquiring value almost instantly in the eyes of the market. People just kind of got into the craze and went mad for them. And, like, you know, for what it's worth, they are, you know, still collectible now. They're just not as expensive and collectible as they were back then. It's kind of a weird kind of like, you know, I suppose indictment of how crazes, of the cycles of crazes. It's just, it's odd, you know. Vintage stuff can be strange, but the Beanie Baby thing is just, I don't think I'm ever really going to quite understand it. So anyway, if we would actually take a look, what's this guy worth? And if we just pop over to eBay, you can see a lot of Beanie Babies up here. And here we go, here's Quackers. And so there's an unfortunate thing here, I'm afraid. There are a couple of listings for Quackers, and he's really not worth, well, basically anything. He's probably worth what I paid for him. He's not like, he's old, but he's not especially unusual. Okay, and the fact that he's also an oddity because his tush tag doesn't match his swing tag, he's probably not even worth what I paid for him, because, you know, it seems that collectors really nowadays are not all that interested in the oddities. There are just too many of them. If there was maybe just one or two, he might be worth a lot, but, you know, it's not worth it at this point because the collectors are aware having an oddity isn't so much of an unusual thing, and it's not going to be worth as much if they're easy to get. So there you have it. I did actually check to see were there any sold, and long story short, not really, not in the last like 90 days anyway on eBay. So I still think he's kind of cute. I know that if he doesn't sell on eBay, I'm just, you know, going to give him to my kids and they'll get, you know, probably $5 worth of enjoyment out of him, which is, you know, good enough for me. So here's Quackers. He's my small joyful thing for today. I hope you guys like him as much as I do. Thank you very much for watching.